you guys hear me? Okay, you guys can.
Yes, we can hear you.
That's perfect. I'm seeing all the chat box, and you guys are very energetic about this global webinar. Welcome to the this global webinar of the United Nations Millennium Fellowship. Let me introduce myself first. It's a bit low. Okay, we can hear you, but I will try to speak up more. Okay. My full name is Bin Young Bae. You guys can see that it's my English name is Evelyn, and I am from the Hong Kong Polytechnic University. And actually, I'm a Korean, and I'm the campus director of my beautiful cohort in PolyU. So I hope you guys can have some time to introduce yourself in the chat box. Hi, Zaki. Hi, Peace. I see people from Nigeria. I see people from Pakistan. Hi. Hello. Yes, it's good. It's perfect that you guys are sharing your LinkedIn and Instagram. Please share it a lot on the chat box so everyone can collaborate. And yes, hi Annika, hi Julie. So before we actually start, we would like to invite the two fellows that will be presenting about their project. So I'll be muting myself for now. So please present your project to all of us so you can get inspired. Thank you.
Thank you, Evelyn. I think you can keep up with what you're doing.
Let us wait for a bit. Oh, there's one person. Okay.
Yes, so I'm watching the room and we are leaving you. Either of you, please feel free to kick off.
Hello everyone, am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello everyone, myself Prachi and I'm from India and I'm an undergraduate student at TU Miranda House. So basically, I'm from Miranda, so my project, I'm from Miranda, that is in India, so my project is basically about the India. So my project is called Pehchan, which in English, if I translate it in English, it's like identity. So my project is Pehchan, where I try to combat with the marginalization and the discrimination of the caste. Like there's a system in India where people discriminate each other on the basis of the caste system, and the worst thing is that people thought that it has gone, and it has eradicated by the policies of the government. Yes, to some extent it has been eradicated, but it still exists in many areas of the country. As we know that India is a huge country, so in many part of the country it still exists, and we ignore it by saying that like it has been eradicated, so and so and so. So my project basically focuses on the discrimination and marginalization based on the caste system. Through my project, I try to make people caste conscious, and in my project, I try to focus on the two type of people. The first that is educated, but they think that this caste system is not here in the India. So for that, I'll be writing a research paper so that people can get to know where I'll be writing the realities and like real incident that happened in India in recent year. And the other target group of my project is children, because I believe that children in school are very progressive, and like they have the urge to learn things, and they can learn a lot. So I want to focus on those people who have the capacity to change their mindset and they are not rigid, and the children at that age are not rigid. So my second focus will be on the children in the school, so that they will be the future of the country. And as we know that children are really gonna do better for our country and for the world itself. So, and apart from my project, I'm really passionate about it, because like even before starting of the Millennium Fellowship, I was trying to do a lot about this project. But when I got the opportunity that I can pursue my project with the help of Millennium Fellowship, I was so excited that I'll get the help and resources, and I can pursue my passion to change the society and have a great impact on it. Being a student, it's very hard to manage academics, co-curriculum activities, plus the project that is very personal and like very, very emotional for me. So I really get the opportunity through the Millennium Fellowship. And my through this project, I'll be focusing on the goal 10 of the SDGs, that is inequality, reducing the inequality, where I try to combat the inequality exists in society. It can be economic, it can be social, anything. So through my project, I'm trying to reduce and combat this, and I'm really excited, and I'm really working on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Prachi. That's awesome. I love your project so much. I'm looking forward to listening to you more. And I would like to invite another student who will be presenting your project to us. Thank you. Hi, Lindy. Can you open your mic, please?
Hi.
Hi.
Hello, everyone. I'm Sunny. I'm Sunny. I'm a final year student majoring in computing at Hong Kong Polytechnic University. I'm glad to be here and open to collaboration and networking. My project idea includes creating a platform that provides mental health service using AI technology. I'm working on a project that's focused on the important issue of mental health among young people. The goal is to provide support for managing stress and promoting well-being and happiness. My project is all about creating a friendly AI assistant that uses a really smart and well-trained large language model focused on psychology. The AI assistant is here to help. It can understand how you are feeling and offer your suggestions and supports based on what you feel and what you say. It can also chat with the user, use text or voice. My project also works with other Millennium Fellows. We can work together to share important mental health information on popular social media platforms like Instagram and Facebook. We can also encourage others to use our platform or seek professional help wherever they really need it. This semester, we were excited to work on creating a chatbot in just 1 month, and we are also be regularly updating our social media with helpful information about mental health. We are here to assist people in paying attention to their mental health, enhancing their quality of life, and finding happiness. Okay, thank you so much for your attention. If you have any questions or comments, don't hesitate to ask me.
Thank you, Sunny. Thank you, and all the two students who introduced their project to us. They're awesome. I hope the group of us, that everyone here is getting inspired by their project. I'm also so interested in it. And now we're going to introduce the lovely 3 speakers that we have for today. Also, we have Anmol and Christine and Sahana. And I would like to introduce one by one so you guys can know better about themselves. Anmol is a product manager at Skilled Futures, and his interests include biotechnology, healthcare and education inequality, and ethics in technology. His rotations include Uno Health and Conservation X Labs, and Justica Labs. Prior to Skilled Futures, Anmol worked as a software engineer at Amazon, validating incoming seller data for the global catalog infrastructure, and as the APM of integrations at Ellis AI. What an amazing journey. It is a conversational AI prop tech startup, and he has also had roles on the Alexa shopping team at a tech up and IoT startup. As an undergraduate, he conducted research to identify the role of preventicular thalamus in the retention of motivated behavior. And he also partnered with Thrive NYC to improve access to mental health care in Queens. And he also holds a BA in computer science from Columbia University. Amazing. I think his journey is fantastic. So we have another person, Christine. Christine is an associate product manager, which is PM at Skilled Futures. And currently he is working with economic architecture, developing an innovative approach to make home ownership more affordable and sustainable and equitable. I think this is a very important issue for the global future in our society. Previously, he did a secondment as a PM at Gaiascope, a climate tech startup, and there he led the go-to-market strategy, scoping and development of Gaia's battery storage system, dispatching optimization products. Additionally, he worked on productionizing and launching a mobile fare lending tool for regulator at ZET AI and computer vision infrastructure on the video integrity team at Facebook, and machine learning models to classify unlabeled articles as polymorphic. He studied as an ML researcher at École Normale Supérieure Paris-Saclay in Paris, France, where he was a Fulbright scholar. Wow. His work on fast, accurate, supervised cloud innovation was published by IGARSS. He was also on fast, accurate, supervised cloud annotation was published by the program. And he was also a teaching fellow for the art and science of migrations at MIT, working with Professor Bruno Verdini. He holds a BS and M engineering in computer science from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Also, for the last person, we have Sahana. Sahana will earn her bachelor's degree in computer science with a minor in government from Harvard College in 2022. She interned in product management and software engineering roles at Microsoft, and he has served as a teaching assistant and an editor of a data journalism publication in college. I think the whole three people are amazing. As one of the emerging technologists, I think this global webinar was so helpful for everyone who's interested in AI and future technology for society. So let me call out one of them to introduce the session. So Christine, Sahana, and Anmol, let me transfer the floor to you to introduce your session. Thank you.
Awesome. So do we just do intros, or do you want each of us to talk?
You can start by the introduction and start the session right away.
Okay. Sure. So, hi everyone. My name is Anmol. Like was mentioned earlier, I'm a current product manager at the Schmidt Futures rotational program, where we work at impact-oriented organizations over a 2-year period. I'll kick it over to you, Christian.
There we go. So I wasn't able to unmute myself. Thanks. My name is Christian Williams. I was a part of the Schmidt Futures rotational program, just like Anmol and Sahana. Actually completed my time there in early September. But had an incredible experience and looking forward to sharing some of my background and sort of where I'm heading with you all in a little bit.
And hi everyone, I'm Sahana. I'm also like Anmol in my second year of the TGT program at Schmidt Futures. Right now, the rotation that I'm on is working at a tech nonprofit called Democracy Works, building tools to help people in the US register to vote. And I'm really excited to be with you all today. Should we dive into our keynote section now?
Yes, amazing. Thank you for the introduction. You guys can start the keynote from now.
All right, I guess I can continue with mine and pass it back. So I guess I'll talk first a little bit about what the TGT program is like, some things I've done on it, what I'm working on now, and generally what my experience as a PM in social impact technology has been, and then I can speak a little bit to the journey of how I got into this space and ended up at Schmidt Futures in this program. So I've been on 3 rotations in the Schmidt Futures TGT program. The way the program is structured is we spend about 6-month-long stints at social impact tech nonprofits or social impact startups, working as product managers, so helping them develop features. We're embedded in the team sort of as regular employees. The goal of this program, I think, is really to help early career technologists who are passionate about making the world a better place or solving problems in their community or society at large enter the tech space and enter it with a social impact lens. I think sometimes it's easier to figure out how to join the tech industry via big tech. It might be harder. You might need more resources or pointers to enter the social impact side of things. So really the point of this program is to help people enter that space. I've done 3 rotations during my time at Schmidt Futures. I spent some time on an internal team at Schmidt Futures, funding research on AI with a focus on funding research that makes AI safer or more ethical. I also did a 6-month stint at the edtech company, Khan Academy. They're an online platform that provides supplementary resources for mostly middle school and high schoolers and their teachers to supplement classroom materials and learn online. There I worked on building an AI chatbot tutor that helps students sort of ask questions, learn how to write better, things like that. I also built out some features that help teachers integrate Khan Academy into the classroom. Right now I'm at a tech nonprofit called Democracy Works, and sort of the mission of this nonprofit is to help people in the United States engage civically, so register to vote, helps them vote. I'm focusing on helping teenagers in the US understand the civic process, understand how elections work, understand how voting work, and ultimately get them registered to vote. So what that looks like on a day-to-day is I get to talk to a lot of nonprofits, grassroots orgs, movements that focus on teenagers getting involved in the civic space. I get to find out what they need help with, what information they could benefit from, and then I scope out features and software tools that could actually help these teenagers register to vote and get involved in voting and elections. So it's a lot of thinking big about what problems people are facing and what they really need, and then figuring out what, if any, role tech can play in solving those problems, and then finally translating that into concrete tools that maybe disseminate information about elections or pre-fill voter registration forms and things like that. The way I got to Schmidt Futures was, I think in college, I knew from the beginning I was interested in tech, but I didn't really know what that entailed or how to get into the industry. I first started by thinking that big tech was the path for me. It was sort of the thing I knew most about. It seemed like the easiest way to learn a lot when I was young and starting out in college. And so I interned at Microsoft, and I learned a lot there, and I really loved the people, but I think I didn't feel as engaged with what I was building and who I was building it for, and I really wanted to make sure that what I was doing actually mattered and helped people and solved problems I cared about. So it seemed natural at that point, when I realized this, to pivot into the world of social impact tech. It hadn't really occurred to me yet that I could marry my interests in advocacy and activism with my actual career, instead of just working on projects in my free time or volunteering, which is what I'd done before. And that's why I ended up joining the Schmidt Futures program. I knew I wanted to get involved in social impact technology. I knew there were causes I cared about, like democracy, like helping people access government benefits, like making sure AI helps people and not hurts people, but I didn't really know how to get involved. And so the Schmidt Futures rotational program was a perfect way to explore the impact space, build a lot of really cool products to help people, and really make sure that the problems I cared about were being solved and talked about in a responsible way. Yeah, with that, I'm happy to pass it back off to Christian.
Thank you. I'm going to start off more so just walking through, just at a high level in life, why I am where I am right now. I like to say that the story of my life, if somebody were to write it, would be called Basketball, Beats, Spots, and Being Black, or honestly, maybe at this point should call it alliteration or something like that. So this basketball piece, for me, what I found so important about team sports is that it taught me to be a leader and to be about part of something that's bigger than myself. I started playing basketball at the age of 5. I was lucky enough to play 4 years collegiately at MIT. And during that experience for 6 straight months, your team's taking the courts when the weather is great and bodies are healthy, but also when that 6 a.m. trek across campus, when the 7-degree weather really wants to break you down, when you have P sets that have kept you up until 4 a.m. for 3 nights straight, and when you're injury ridden. And that stuff can be really challenging. We were nationally ranked 3 of my 4 years there and set a high bar for ourselves, but part of the reason why I think we didn't break down despite a lot of those challenges that we brought into collective values that we had as a team. For us, it was called passion, hard work, accountability, and toughness. Spelled PHAT, we actually called ourselves Fat Fam. MIT is good with numbers, we're not very poetic. But we had this aligned mission, regular season champs, conference champs, national champs, and this is what all tied us together. you see your teammate running extra sprints because they missed free throws in practice. People are getting on the line to run with them. Your teammate isn't running back hard enough on defense. You hold them accountable. All of these things sort of embodied strong leadership and helped our values and mission to emanate. And so, for me, embodied in basketball work and other areas of my life is this aspect of leadership. The desire to have an impact around sort of on the communities around me, to enable the communities around me with agency, which is their ability to have a choice and make a difference. And I felt that ultimately being a leader is not about dancing to the beat of your own drum, but more about empowering the band itself to perform its masterpiece. So on that note, moving over to beats, beats for me meaning like music and rhythms. I have found myself somehow in the world of music production. Had an interesting relationship with music growing up. I think like a lot of kids, your parents stick you in piano class and you don't really want to, and you have to suck it up for a few years. But eventually really grew to find a passion in that. And ultimately sort of down the line got into creating music myself, beats and songs, and I started to realize how this experience shared a lot of similarities for me to that of an entrepreneur. Like an entrepreneur, as a producer, you're often taking an idea from the ground up, from ideation, bringing something to fruition. You have the ability to drive something through the vision of your own lens, and it's incredibly motivating. A mentor of mine at Schmidt Futures defined entrepreneurship as someone who can exert influence in ways that exceed their formal authority, and requires a mobilization of resources not directly under their control. And this actually spoke volumes to me. And whether it's been sort of pulling together peers and creators to produce music, launching an app on campus, I've found ways, I feel like, to have this manifest, and have watched other peers do it incredibly well. And I really feel like approaching life through this lens of entrepreneurship, you can have an outsized impact on the world around you. The bots piece is short for robots, or like AI. I think like many AI and ML are among some of the most influential developments currently in the world. I first got introduced to ML by an engineer at Microsoft back when I was in high school, and sort of cultivated my interest and knowledge on the matter in college. Subsequently, as everyone mentioned, I got my master's in computer science, also at MIT, and focused a lot on ML for satellite imagery. I think that just like any other tool, it's how it's wielded that will determine AI's ultimate impact, and given how powerful it has the potential to be. At Schmidt Futures, as a product manager, I had opportunities to do projects with Zest AI, which is a leader in AI-powered software for credit underwriting. At Gaiascope, that's a climate tech leader, building advanced AI models for renewables and forecasting, and ultimately hope to continue to sort of deepen my knowledge in this space and work at the intersection of AI for good, trying to have an impact on the communities that I care about and communities around the world. And the last part sort of this why and this journey for me is stemming from the fact that I've grown up as a person of color, specifically a Black man in the United States, and with that reality, as I think is a reality for a lot of folks throughout the world, is you realize that there are many aspects of your circumstances that you can't control, whether it's your race, familial income bracket, etc., things that you're born into, but ultimately have a disproportionately strong and disparate impact and influence on the opportunities that you might see around you. And this is something that I realized early on, and realized that it actually bothers me. And I saw it in sort of my father and uncle who were racially profiled, being pulled over, accused of stealing cars. I saw it in people who I thought were peers who said, oh, you only got into MIT because you're a person of color or because you can play basketball. I see it in the police brutality that we see in the United States, etc. And ultimately, sort of in sum of all of these things, not just aspects of my life and what I could hope will continue to be in my future, but these are things that I think ultimately are how I would like to live my life. Would like to be a leader, would like to build and create, to solve tough problems, building impactful tech. and ultimately am driven to have an impact towards social equity and freedoms for Black community and underserved communities generally. A few years back, I realized that a key to this last piece around social justice and freedoms in Black people and underserved communities is economic freedom and opportunity. And this led me to dive into the world within impact of socioeconomic mobility. And that's the reason why I really sort of decided to join Schmidt Futures, to get exposure to that world, to find areas where I can plug in, and ultimately being interested in entrepreneurship, trying to find ways where I could find conviction around a problem that I could build around and dedicate my career towards. I spent a ton of time thinking about micro-lending and disrupting payday lending, but ultimately sort of resolved around this notion of entrepreneurship itself as a lever for economic mobility, thinking like small, medium businesses all the way through entrepreneurship. It was really when I was 12 when I realized that I wanted to have an impact on the Black community, underserved communities generally. I was 14 when I realized that I wanted to have this impact through tech, and it's taken over a decade of iterating and thinking and navigating via my why, which is sort of the story that I've shared, to get to this place where I have conviction about a problem where I'd like to make a dent here. And so as I step away from Schmidt Futures a few weeks ago, I mentioned we'll now be working on building a company doing social entrepreneurship, focusing on access to capital for small and medium businesses, trying to bolster entrepreneurship in the U.S., a way that I think can really have an impact on creating community wealth in underserved communities and contributing to that piece of socioeconomic mobility. So with that, I will throw it over to Anmol.
Wow. Awesome. Thanks, Christian. So I'd like to start just by thanking the Millennium Campus Network and the United Nations Academic Impact for launching the Millennium Fellowship, and I'd like to congratulate all of you here on this call, the Millennium Fellows, for your commitment to lead with empathy. I know that you were selected from amongst thousands around the world, and just to see such a strong community of future leaders and technologists who want to use these advances in technology to close the gap instead of letting it widen. It's inspiring for me. Quite honestly, I wish I knew about this program when I was in your shoes, just based on some of the projects that I've heard so far. But what I'll try to do is maybe share where I come from, how I got here, because you see us here today, but how much did I know about what I was doing on my way here? You'll learn not a lot, but I think that part of my persistence for merging my interests with my work kind of kept me going. So for example, I'm born and raised in Richmond Hill, Queens, New York City, which is a primarily Punjabi immigrant community. My dad is a cab driver who immigrated to the U.S. in 1984. My mom is a middle school teacher's assistant for kids who needed individual attention or translation help. And so growing up, I witnessed a lot of inequities in the community where I grew up. I was born in Elmhurst Hospital, which was the epicenter of the pandemic in New York. There were a lot of educational gaps. We didn't know about all these different school systems and admissions tests for specialized public schools. There's so much stigma around things like mental health care. And so for me, seeing all these things growing up, when I left my community and I learned more about all these things and I learned about, resources that could help, I wanted to kind of take those back and help them in my community, because I knew that there are so many communities like my own where this information is equally as relevant. There's people going through the same problems everywhere. And so I know that the theme, I think broadly, is, how can we leverage tech and data for impact and social justice work? I think for me, the central part of my message is I would start thinking about personalized solutions as the future, like using data to understand different needs and contexts, because remaking technology for communities that are usually forgotten when technology is first created, I think that's kind of the key. And so as I tell you my story, I think maybe there's three primary things that I'd want you to keep in mind. These are the things that I think principally helped me get to where I am today. So one is upskilling to become effective in impact spaces, because usually impact spaces lack technology resources, they lack technology staffing, they lack an understanding of technical constraints. So, what do you build? How do you build it? The second thing I'd keep in mind is becoming confident dealing with lots of ambiguity, because I think, dealing with questions not only from a technical perspective, but also from community engagement, I think talking to people really matters for communities that you want to help, and being willing to acknowledge that what you thought was a problem might not be the problem, and you have to absorb new information in order to figure out what's actually the case. And then the last thing is probably just positioning yourself to sit in the center of any sort of stakeholder management, because I think that's really important for community-based development. So I'd urge you to just think about those three things as I tell you my story, and I can briefly tell you how I got there. So I originally started out with like a really strong interest in medicine, and part of that is because when you come from communities where you don't really know about what the alternatives look like, you're pushed into professions like medicine and law, and without a lot of thought, because those are the paths that you're supposed to follow. And I definitely wanted to be a doctor. I think for a lot of those reasons. I obviously wanted to help people. Healthcare was really important to me. I saw what it was like to go through shortcomings in the healthcare system. But I really got obsessed with neuroscience, and I became obsessed with memory and finding out what makes us each unique and different from each other. And so I got into computational neuroscience research in high school. I was fortunate that I attended the specialized public high school that gave me the resources. And what I did was I literally just emailed as many labs as I could, because nobody has use for a high school student, but you just need one person to take a chance on you. And so I thought I was going to go to college and I was going to be a doctor, and so I did all this research. I wrote a couple research papers. I did research when I got to college, and I realized when I was doing research at Stanford the summer after my freshman year that I cared a lot more about scaling my impact, in addition to having this personal touch that you do through medicine. And I didn't love the medical school path; it was kind of chosen for me. And so, I had this period where I was really unclear about what I wanted to do with my life, and I kind of pivoted to technology because I figured as a skill set, computer science would be useful no matter what I did. I saw it as the future. And so I, pivoted and started chasing a software engineering job. And that was because, by working at startups, by interning at Amazon, two big reasons kind of pushed me to work full-time at Amazon. One was the money, right? Candidly, financial stability, helping to support my family financially. That was a real important thing for me. And at the same time, the skill of learning how to build technology and infrastructure at scale, I figured would serve me well in the long run. And so I worked there for about 2.5 years. And I think at that point, I decided that I wanted to switch into product management. And I didn't even know really a lot about product management when I was in college. So I can't tell you that, I had this grand plan that I was going to become a product manager. But, I learned through my experience as an engineer that I really was good at communicating between engineering and other parts of the business. And I cared a lot more about what we were building and why, rather than just the implementation, which as an early engineer in big tech is usually, you don't get a lot of say in what you're working on. And e-commerce wasn't as impactful to me. So I tried to move over and combine my interests with my work, which is something that I dreamed about in college, but didn't really know how to make that happen. I ended up working as an associate product manager at this conversational AI startup that was trying to make housing more affordable. And there, I learned how to take ownership. I learned how to take risks. I learned how to fail. I learned how to own the decisions that I made. And I think that's really important to know that you can take reversible decisions early in your career, and that's the only way that you learn. And then how did I get to Schmidt Futures? I literally, when I was recruiting, I literally Googled social impact in tech, and it was a couple of days before the Schmidt Futures program deadline, and that's how I found it. And there's no advanced recruiting or anything like that, but it seemed like this kind of perfect way to test out what it means to innovate in different impact sectors, across healthcare, education, biotech, all these areas that I cared about, and see what it means to actually be innovating as a product manager at those companies. So that kind of brought me to Schmidt Futures, and what I've done at Schmidt Futures so far is that I've had the fortunate opportunity to work across 3 really cool organizations. One was Health, where it's a healthcare tech company that is basically a platform that gives subsidized utilities and other forms of government assistance to senior citizens who are unaware that they were eligible. And so that was a lot of execution work, converting needs into requirements, and then launching and post-launch execution. I worked at Conservation X Labs, which is this biotech company that, basically wants to stop the biggest mass extinction, which is, the conservation of our planet. And I worked on this rapid testing device that allows you to do DNA testing in the field in under 30 minutes and figuring out how to scale their development, their go-to-market strategy, making these like interconnections for this multi-sided marketplace. And now I'm working at this place, this nonprofit called Justicia Lab, and they build digital tools for immigration justice. And that means helping people with pre-screening forms, going through the citizenship process, connecting you to free legal help. And so I've just had this opportunity now where I have gotten a chance to see what the barriers look like in all of these different places. And I think it's important to me to figure out what are the barriers that motivate me and excite me the most about overcoming them. And so that's kind of where I sit today as I start to think about the future of my career. And I'm happy to dive into any of these experiences. I know that you're all preparing to launch personal social impact projects that respond to your local community's issues. I also had the opportunity to try to improve mental health care resources in my community by trying to connect us. We had this really difficult conversation that we hosted in Richmond Hill to try to talk about mental health and then connect them to Thrive NYC, which was this program that had been started by the mayor at the time. But it showed me that there are these knowledge gaps that you need to close, but sometimes knowledge gaps, closing those is not enough. You need to actually have those difficult conversations with the people that you want to help to understand what is the real problem and how do you actually fix it. So I'll stop there. Happy to dive deeper into any of my experiences going forward. But I'll turn it back over to you, Evelyn.
Thank you so much. Thank you. All of these sharings from the speakers are so inspiring for me. And I think it will be the same for the people in here, because as an emerging technologist, I have many challenges to think about the future of the AI or future of the future technology. And also it's a really big issue in university too. So but before we deep down to get some questions from the floor, I would like to have 2 questions from the audience and maybe a personal question from me. So I'll start from now. So actually many undergraduates grapple balancing between the wanting big tech success at the first trial, but also they're also hoping to create community impact. Have you had to face this dilemma between balancing these kind of components together?
I can take that one. I think that's a really important question, and it's one that I think about every day. Coming from the background that I come from, low income, first generation, financially supporting my family is really important. It's also like a hard truth that I don't have the privilege of sticking to a career only in nonprofit. So for me, as I think about what it means to create impact while also trying to ameliorate my family's financial conditions, I see a future in which I'm like bridging this gap between the public sector, between the private sector, between the nonprofit sector, by kind of having a career in which I weave back and forth through these areas. Like I mentioned, it kind of influenced my first job choice, right? And the big thing about the Schmidt Futures program is that it's a huge help because its competitive salary enabled me to work at nonprofits and organizations that otherwise I wouldn't have been able to. And what that's helped me realize is that understanding how money moves hands is so critical to being able to get it no matter where you're at, to kind of fund your ideas. And my message kind of is that I think being realistic is part of your journey. I think you can't help others if you aren't helping yourself, and you don't want to burn out. So you should be thinking about, how do I build myself up to be a person who can create long-lasting change by developing key skills that I can use in any sector, and how do I pull from those different experiences to now like weave between figuring out what are my financial constraints and how can I bridge my desire to create impact. So I think it means having a career that isn't linear. And I'm learning from people at Schmidt Futures, from other mentors, what careers that weave between these sectors and industries look like. But yeah, it's something that I'm keenly aware of, and I think if it's an important consideration for you, I think it's important not to ignore it. I think it is part of this whole equation.
I see. Thank you. For the follow-up, I have another follow-up question about your answer. So you gave me great advice about balancing these components. And based on the questions that I just asked, what is the most surprisingly rewarding experience in your journey of working with technology to address the social, economic, and ecological issues?
Yeah, that's a good question. I I think, so when I worked at Uno Health, what we were essentially doing was we were offering unsolicited help to senior citizens that didn't know that they were eligible for free government assistance, whether it was for their energy bill, whether it was for their healthcare costs, whether it was getting enrolled in Medicare. We did all these user interviews, and we talked to people, and they were just like, I don't believe you. They just had this huge mistrust of unsolicited help. And so we're like, we're offering you free money. Like, how do we actually bridge this gap? And so through user interviews, we talked to them. We figured out that language is super important. The way that you phrase, the way that your pamphlets look, like how official they look, is so important to building trust. So when we finally built something that, senior citizens were willing to open and use and respond back to us, like building something for a tech-averse population that works, you can physically see the trust that you're building in your community, that you're actively bridging a gap that someone thought could not be bridged because that system was not built or designed for them. And so, that also included, translating some of these directions for accessing government assistance into multiple languages. And actually there was, an error in the Punjabi translation, and I was able to fix it because I knew how to read and speak Punjabi. And so when I fix gaps like that, I think about how many communities like mine I'm helping, and how many people, when you improve critical services for people that enable them to live their best lives, it kind of has this generational impact that improves the trajectory of their careers and their lives, and kind of like the socioeconomic mobility that Christian was talking about.
Great, that is an awesome answer, because we were talking about this kind of topic in today's session in our cohort. So this is all for my questions, and then I'm going to try and pick up some questions from the floor. So would you guys able to stay a little bit more to answer more questions, please? Great. So I see a hands up from a student called Ebenezer. Can you please unmute your mic and ask your question, please? And remember to introduce yourself and about your name and your university to the speakers. Hi, Ebenezer.
Hi everyone. Hi, so my name is Ebenezer Korir from the University of Nairobi in Kenya, and I'm happy, and I will want to comment on the good presentation from our speaker today. And I have a question for him. For a person who is new to AI and technology, what is the best way to start off? Is it does one need a mentor, or what do you think of self-paced learning as a technique, or does someone need to have a mentor in order to continue? And also, just a concern, what do you think is the future of quantum computing? The future of quantum computers. What is the future of it? Thank you so much.
I can hop in. I'm going to answer your second question first and say I have no idea what the future of quantum computing is, with all transparency. To answer your first question, to me, it's not an either or. One of the unique aspects of computer science is that you can sort of do a lot more than if you're trying to do mechanical engineering. You need a lot more materials and resources. If you have the opportunity to have laptop and internet connection, you can get quite far on your own. And so I definitely would encourage you to scour the internet for either courses. There are tons of books. There are tons of like problem sets and things you can practice, and also highly encourage you to look around you and say, hey, what can I do as a personal project that's just interesting? You learn a ton from having to figure stuff out when you do these personal projects. And then if you have the opportunity, either via school, a family friend, or somebody that you know, to ask for mentorship, absolutely ask for mentorship. I think there are a few benefits from having a mentor or a sponsor. One is you're somebody who's been through a certain domain and can help sift through all of the noise and say, focus on this, don't focus on that. They're also somebody who can, at times, when you're not even in the room, think about you and make recommendations like, oh, I'm chatting with a colleague and they're looking to hire somebody, oh, you know what, I know Ebenezer, let me reach out to him and maybe connect the dots. So I don't think it's an either or. I'd hardly encourage you to do both. And on the mentorship side of things, I would encourage you to not be afraid to just ask as straightforward as, hey, I'm excited about this. I've been putting in work on my own time. I've came across your background. Would love to hear more. And on that chat, ask directly. Would love for for you to be a mentor for me as I take this path. It's not always going to be yes, but don't. You'd be surprised how eager folks are to help out and to be in that role, to see somebody else shine and learn and grow.
Yeah, I would echo that completely, Christian. I think mentors definitely aren't necessary, especially when you're getting started. So I don't want that to be like something that scares anyone or feels like a blocker to them moving on, but they can be super helpful once you've entered a space. And I think in terms of finding a mentor, it's always helpful to see if there's anyone whose career looks like where you want to be in 10 or 15 years. And you may not be able to replicate their path. That's not really the point of it, but they'll have insight that can help you do the kinds of work that they're doing or enter their field and things like that.
Great, thank you for your prompt response. I really like the response that you gave to the student. I have some questions on the chat box rather than raising their hands up, so I will try to read them out. It's from a student named called Guru Ibrahim. He asked 2 questions. First one is, what is it like working with Microsoft, and is the pressure too much? The second one is, what advice can William give for some of us who aspire to join MIT? I think that's a very aspiring question. Is the environment supportive to students with nurturing their ideas and innovations?
All right, I can start on Microsoft. So I'll give a disclaimer that I didn't work there full time. I did 2 internships there a few years ago. And I will note that I think the environment has changed at Microsoft since the advent of generative AI. I think they're really in the center of the conversation on AI right now. Everyone's sort of racing to do things as quickly as possible. So what I'm saying is like a couple of years out of date because that's when I worked there. I would say that Microsoft was a really great experience. One of the main reasons I've heard people encourage me or others to work in big tech early in their career is because you really can't match the amount of resources they have and the sort of foundational skills that you'll get as an early career technologist. You can get those skills elsewhere. I'm definitely learning a lot at the nonprofits and startups that we're working at now, but you're surrounded by literally thousands of just really experienced engineers and PMs. So I think it was a really great structured learning experience for early in my career. I didn't feel that much pressure on my team, but I think it's really team dependent. I think if you were working on sort of their big generative AI features, I'm sure you would have a very different experience nowadays. I think, I'm sure there's some teams there that are similar to any other tech company in terms of being intense, and then teams that are a little more relaxed, and you never know what you're going to get when you apply for a job there.
And I can hop in. To answer the first part of your question, advice on those who are interested in MIT, I don't think there's anything magic. I think it's just like all other schools where just focusing in the classroom, working hard and studying is really important. Spending time on diving in on things that you're generally passionate about. I wouldn't necessarily encourage trying to do everything to quote unquote stat pad your resume. I'd focus on like what do you actually care about, such that in a college application you can show through your words and the sparkle in your eye in the interview, like I really care about this and I took steps to get involved in it, whether it's music, basketball, tech, project in your local community. Spend time really immersing yourself and going deep on the things that you care about, and have that show, and try and just do your best. Try and excel to the extent that you can. Is an environment supportive to students with nurturing their ideas and innovation? I'd say absolutely. There are a ton of folks at MIT and many other institutions that are incredibly ambitious and come and are like, oh, I want to launch this or start this or try that. And I think the nature of just having those folks around in itself is in a very supportive environment, because you have a lot of people to cross-pollinate ideas with, just to feed off of their energy, to learn from. And then MIT has a lot of programmatic support from some of their startup accelerators, their entrepreneurship coursework, their entrepreneurship departments that give you the opportunity to go in and chat with mentors and demystify some of the unknowns of the process, and potentially gain mentors that have been through it and can give you some tips.
Thank you. As a college student, I think these kind of advice from the previous college students, I think that is the advice I really wanted as a high school student. So for the young professionals, I think it would be really helpful. So since we actually talked about the questions on the checkbox, I'll try to go back to the people who are waiting to get answered by raising their hand up. So I see the student named Calvin McWorrell raising his hand up patiently until now. So I think you can unmute yourself and introduce yourself to the speaker.
Hello, my name is Calvin Chani from the Technical University of Mombasa in Kenya. So I have these two disturbing questions. First, when you're dealing with let's say like a complex problem or a complex project, you have to deal with different concepts, and some different concepts you don't know them, so you have to go back and learn, to go back to the roots. But if you're doing this, you see that time is moving, it's not there to wait for you. And when you look like these big tech companies, they made it when they're still in college. So how do you deal with that anxiety that getting late to take your project out to the market? And my second question is, for the self-taught guys, get certificate that this but there is a pass, or because I see like for you to succeed as a self-taught engineer, you have to be an innovator, nothing else. So is there a market for guys who are self-taught in the tech industry? Yeah, thank you.
Hi, Calvin. I'm sorry to interrupt your question, but actually we're a bit lagging. So I think it's better for you to type your question in the chat box. And we'll go back to your questions later, because actually you're a bit lagging. I think it's a bit hard for us to understand the question. Did any of the speakers pick up this question? May I ask?
I got the first one, I think. Feel free to type in the chat regardless, but the first one, it sounded like trying to balance, if you're trying to create an innovation where you don't have all the answers and there's some sort of additional research or learning that you need to do, balance moving forward with the fact that you have to go back and teach yourself things. Is that correct? My recommendation here is to, first of all, solving problems in the impact space is tough, but sometimes the difficulty is just doing the work, and people don't want to do the work. Not because there's anything wrong with them, and this is not a value judgment. It's just that it takes time, and it's not sexy, and it's not easy. And so, to a certain extent, if you're willing to put in the work, I almost wouldn't worry about the problem running away or all of a sudden disappearing, because it's there for a reason, and it's probably quite challenging. And so the fact that you're willing to do the work to do it means that it's probably still going to be there if you need to go back and learn some things. Second, one thing that I need to remind myself to do is, anytime you're trying to solve for somebody, and you have a bunch of intermediate steps of development or learning or growth, you don't need to wait until you have something perfect to go and get feedback. Anytime you have a hypothesis about, oh, I learned this, I think this might be true, I think this is how I should approach things, get in front of somebody, whether it's the corporation or organization you're trying to work with, the customers you're trying to work with, don't let it be, okay, I need to disappear for 6 months to learn, and then once I build something perfect, I can go back. At any point in between, when you have a hypothesis about something that you've discovered, learned, or built, get in front of folks. And I think it can tighten that feedback loop where you're concerned about sort of disappearing for some time where you have to learn before you can go back and make progress. And Sahana, do you have any thoughts there?
Yeah, I'd love to piggyback on that answer. I'll leave you with two things, and I think that kind of maybe touches on your second question, which is I think one thing that has worked for me is the shotgun approach. It's never failed me. So, when I was a high school student who had no skills, I emailed hundreds of labs across New York City to find two people that were willing to take me on after maybe I got 5 responses from hundreds of emails for just to sit down, right? Then I read some papers, I would go talk to them, show them that I knew how to digest the information, and would they take a chance on me? When I was trying to recruit for engineering jobs after having been pre-med for my freshman year, same thing, like shotgun approach to so many startups, email everyone I could think of, got almost no responses, but you just need one. The thing is, you usually just need one thing to go your way. Same thing when I was an engineer and looking to transition into product with no product experience 2 years ago. Shotgun approach. Every startup that reached out to me for an engineering role, I said, hey, I actually want to do product. And 95% of them said, okay, bye. But it only takes one, right? So one thing is I'd say never fear shooting your shot. The second thing I would say to everyone is to lean into the imposter syndrome. So because I promise you that everyone, no matter how good they are at what they do, they have it. And in this case, I can assure you that there are not enough people who exist and are willing to sit with the discomfort of figuring out how to help underserved communities by engaging with them and talking with them, making MVPs of products that don't work, talking to people to figure out why they don't work, and then actually address the problem. I promise you there are not enough people doing that. So if there is a problem space that you're passionate about, become comfortable finding out where is the ambiguity in that problem space. If you dig enough, if you talk to enough people, and no matter how confident you are in your ability to execute, if you stay persistent, you talk to people, you figure out what the problems are, writing all that stuff down and organizing your thoughts, I think that will go a very long way in you figuring out, hey, what is the next step, or maybe who do I need to go find on LinkedIn to talk to about this. So I would say those two things are really important, I think, in advocating for yourself, no matter if you're self-taught, no matter what you do. I think those things can help you no matter what.
Yeah, definitely. On a final note, I would just add, don't underestimate yourselves. Just knowing a little bit of the projects you guys are working on and your accomplishments, you can validate and keep learning as you go, of course, but I would say if you have an idea, I have faith that there's a kernel of real truth that brought that to your mind, and to run with it. Even if you need to keep learning along the way, it's totally possible to do both at the same time. And don't let unsurety hold you back, because there's other people who might not have the same connections to your community or to those problems as you do. So it's important to me that folks like you especially keep moving on and keep working.
Great, thank you. It was a really nice answer too, Calvin. So if you have no questions that you want to ask, since because of your network connection, you can just leave it on the chat box and I will read it out to them. Okay, so actually we're a bit overrunning, so I think it's better for us to pick one more question from the chat box and one more question was raising your hands up. So let's go back to the chat box, and there's actually a really popular question that had 3 thumbs up in the questions. I think I'm going to read it out because I'm very curious about this question. It's called, the student name is called Audrey, and she said, how do you get your government work to take innovation and tech seriously? Like, what's the right approach to do that? Because in the end, we need their assistance in one way or another. And this got 4 thumbs ups. Yeah.
Yeah. Go for it, Sahana.
Oh, thanks. I'll be quick. I think the first thing that comes to mind is when I've been working in the tech policy space and the civic tech space, what's really important is that you make sure you know what your government officials and policymakers in your country want. Like, what motivates them? What are their big goals? What do they need to be doing? What do they have pressure on them to do politically? What are their personal interests, to really get a sense of where their motivations lie?
and then figure out how you can marry the tech and innovation that you're advocating for to align with those interests. So maybe there's a goal or a promise that they're being upheld to, and you know a way for your tech or your innovation to help them get there. Maybe they'll help you advocate for that tech on a broader level, because in part it will help them. So I think knowing people's incentives and trying to figure out how to align that with the tech and innovations you're promoting is important.
Yeah. So I think to maybe like just quickly follow up on that, I think usually when people think government, they think like federal or state level. I think the important thing I want to reiterate is that local government helps local change. So finding out who your city council person is, talking to them, and you know, what is the small business administration in wherever you live, what do they do, who are the agents there that you can talk to. I think a lot of small, there are usually some resources at the local government level that are dedicated to helping communities. We just usually don't know about them or how to access them. So I would encourage you to find out who those people are for you, and also then like education is the thing that I champion all the time. You can't ask for something if you don't explain why you need it and what the impact of it would be. So it's your job to talk to people and figure out, hey, what are the needs? How do I be the bridge between this community that has these needs but doesn't know how to express them, and these people that have money allocated to them or resources or connections, and they want to offer some sort of assistance, but they don't know how to reach the people. Clearly there's a gap. So it's more about like that education and finding out who the people are at a local level. When I did that mental health care project, we worked with a lot of the local city, we worked with the NYC deputy mayor, who we just like reached out to. There was someone who was working at the small business department for New York City. They reached out to people who were willing to give us some things for free, whether it was chairs, whether it was a meeting space. I think like thinking about change as small, iterative, incremental steps is really important.
I see. Thank you for the answer. I think he got his curiosity solved. And I actually saw one person raising his or her hand, but I think it's gone. So I think I'm gonna ask final question. It's a really long one, but I think it's a very important inquiry to ask. His name is Victor, and this question is specifically for Anmol. And his question is, you spoke about volunteering in computational neuroscience when you were younger in an attempt to find what field would be most suitable for your social impact, and how afterwards you discovered the traditional path, like getting a medical degree, wasn't the path choice for you. In this phase of exploration, what were your guiding factors? How and what steps did you know to take to come closer to what you originally desired, like social impact in health and technology? Did you have any mentors or guidelines? And I think this is quite important for everyone to change their career path. Yes.
Yeah, that's a great question. Honestly, and I can tell you what I did. So the semester that my sophomore fall, after that summer where I did research and thought that I didn't want to go to med school, for a semester I was pre-law, I was pre-tech, I was pre-investment banking. So what I did was I joined the undergraduate law review. I started hitting up anyone that I knew that worked at a law firm. I was downloading all these guides for investment banking interviews, and I was joining this club on campus called ADI, which connects you to people who are working in computer science already. So I was trying to find anyone who knew anything about any of these fields. And the goal of what I was trying to do was to, and I said this, but it's like to find the areas where barriers to innovation actually excite you and motivate you. There's going to be barriers in anything you do. It's inherent to not just social impact, but working anywhere. But thinking about what you want to do, why, what skills you need to work on those problems, and that will make you indispensable no matter where you go. That's kind of how I sort of thought about it. And so at every one of those steps, like I met someone who was interning at Microsoft as a senior when I was a sophomore, and I, through them, learned like what it meant to be a software engineer. And so that made me kind of settle down on that, right? Like when I became a software engineer and I was thinking about product, one of my captains for the dance team that I was on when I was in college, he was a product manager. And so I, talked to him, and through him got intro to a bunch of people who were product managers or startup founders looking for PMs to kind of like talk to people and meet people. A lot of it is, when we recruit, we think it's so much about being interviewed, but it's equally as important to interview back and understand, is this a place where I like the people? I like the problem. I like, what I will be doing here on a day-to-day basis. And I think Some of those things you can glean from the interview process, be more proactive. And part of it is just experience, right? Like I learned what it was like to intern at a startup where we worked 15-hour days. I learned what it was like to intern at Amazon, and then I went back there and worked there full time. And sometimes you just do things and you learn that you don't like them, or you learn that that's not what's for you. So I think failure and trying things early in your career within reason, again, is also one of the most important ways to learn.
Really, I think that's a perfect answer. I'll kind of ask this question to Professor because I'm a final year student, but I think it's a really good answer for all the audience today. Okay, I think most of the questions are answered now, and since we're a bit overrunning, I think it's time for us to wrap up. So, I think since this is towards the end, I would like to ask the speakers how fellows can keep in touch with you guys. Since actually this webinar is recorded and publicly shared, I think it's better for you to type your email or LinkedIn in the private Zoom chat instead of saying it, just in case of privacy. So before we end off the question with the announcement, I would like to ask speakers to have the closing remarks or any closing advice for the fellows.
Sure. I think I touched on like the three things that I wanted to emphasize when I started talking in the beginning were like those skills that I think you should think about as you upskill to become effective in impact spaces, become confident dealing with ambiguity. I think the one thing that I want to leave you all with is learn how to close the loop on things. Learn how to just get stuff done. Like, I think President Obama has a quote about how there's plenty of people who can rephrase and summarize problems really interestingly, and they can take information and give it back. But the people that he always looked to were the ones that were actually getting things done, which means sometimes going outside your role, collaborating to actually close the loop on a problem instead of leaving open questions. Like a tangible way to do that is whenever there's a problem, write a document on it. Like, what are the open questions? Who do you need an answer from? Who do you need to talk to? Get it down to the least ambiguous problem that you can before you make a decision. And then make decisions, right? Make reversible decisions. Often we think decisions are these permanent things that we can't change, but usually they're things that we can learn from. And usually, they're not things that are not reversible or that you shouldn't take that step. I think you shouldn't let fear inhibit you. And so, yeah, I know that you all will go on to do many, many inspiring things, and I can't wait to see them. And it was a privilege for me to speak here today, so thank you for the opportunity.
Well said, Anmol. I think my final piece of advice would be something that my manager at Schmidt Futures says to both of us often, which is it's really hard to predict where a project or where an issue you care about or where your life or career is going to take you after the next step. So if you're trying to figure out how your project's going to or what to work on next, my advice is to just focus one step at a time. There's no point trying to predict if something will be successful or where it will get you or if it'll get you to the correct spot 10 years down the line. I always just try to focus on what matters to me right now and what can I do about it right now, and then we'll deal with later because I don't think there's really a point in trying to predict it. To close, I just wanted to say congratulations again for being selected for this amazing fellowship. It was a joy and a privilege to hear a little bit about your projects and to get to chat with you. I had a great time. Christian would also like to apologize. He had a hard stop and had to leave early, but he also really appreciated getting to be here. And thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much. A lot of our fellows really want to connect you guys because you guys are really inspiring. So maybe if you can share the LinkedIn or any professional account for them. And also, this is actually the official end of this global webinar. Millennium Fellows, congratulations again. Congratulations for me. And it was really an honor for me to join this webinar as a moderator. Keep going on with your projects, and thank you for the speakers for joining. Thank you.